So there you have it. The hour moment as families are reunited. There are smiles and happiness and snow. And I guess at some point most of us have watched Home Alone. But Christmas movies, don't you just love them? With warm-hearted and humorous stories, joyous seasonal music liberally laced with sleigh bells, and the opportunity to overdose in self-indulgent, vacuous, and sentimental slush. I have to confess, Christmas movies are a bit contentious in our home. There is a mild tension. One member of our household, who will remain nameless, happily cuddles up under her crocheted blanket and watches them back to back. And you know when the first Christmas movie showed this year? Just after half term. That's October, people. October? Well, we all know that Christmas is about love, right? And real love is clearly about family, it's about romance, it's about friendship. That deep sense of belonging we have when we belong to blood family. That intense eruption of emotions when we fall in love, and that feeling of trust and security when we're with friends, and we know that with them we can be ourselves, and that they'll always be there for us, and that they'll have our back. Love is amazing. And the hallmark of love is the feelings that it generates that are often so impossible to express. They are too deep for words. The words we come out with just kind of merely scratch the surface of something that is so profound, because love is wonderful and powerful and compelling, and it pulls us in and it warms our hearts and it makes the world around us seem lighter and brighter. The Beatles were right after all. All you need is love. But if that's all it is, we've got it all wrong. Like saying we know nature because we've been for a walk in the countryside, or that we understand the ocean because we've been on a cruise, or that we comprehend the universe because we look through a telescope. Now, there's a lot more to love than our experience of love, or the experience of love that we aspire to if our family or our romantic life or our friendships are not quite what we would hope they would be. Even more famous than the Beatles, Jesus has an angle on this too. And this is what he says: "A new command I give you. Love one another." Do you know that's strong? Can you actually command someone to love? Can you compel people what to feel? Well, this morning we're going to delve a little deeper into what real love looks like. And there are times it's not going to be an easy listen. There are times you might find it a little bit challenging, even uncomfortable. Yeah, apologies for that, but buckle up, because here we go. This morning, as Chris said, we are in the final installment of our pre-Christmas series, Christmas Presents, that just began 3 weeks ago when Tim spoke about hope, then Karen spoke about peace. Last week, Paul spoke about joy. All of those are on our YouTube channel, or you can catch them in the hub section of our website. But I get to climax the series. What does real love look like? Well, we have the quintessential Christmas scene that sums the story up. There's the baby in the manger, family scene with a young mum and dad standing protectively beside her. Cuddly animals in the background. We have a clear, starlit night. We've got angels. And if I were a shepherd, I would bring a lamb, and there's another cuddly animal. And then there's the wise men. And we're caught up in that swirl of nostalgia and aspiration. All the good memories that we have of Christmases that are past, all that we hope for the future, not least for peace on earth and goodwill between all people. In the words of my favorite Christmas carol, not a particularly well-known one, but by the poet Christina Rossetti, love came down at Christmas. Love, all lovely, love divine. Love was born at Christmas. Star and angels gave the sign. Christmas is love. And all this is true. But it's also why we get Christmas wrong. And why we get love wrong. We allow the feelings and the emotions and the sentimentality to define something that they're only meant to be a part of. And then our nostalgia for the past and our wishful thinking for the future conspire to make us miss the point and miss what love is really all about. But to refocus what we think about love, we need to go back to the beginning. We need to go back to basics. And one of the first bits of the Bible that I learned when I began to take Jesus seriously is that God is love. You know, that's so simple. You could almost dismiss it as being trivial, like some kind of bumper sticker sentiment, an empty catchphrase. But it's altogether rather more profound than that. If God is love, then love is at the heart of the universe. Love is the center of everything. Love defines us. Love shapes us. Love guides us. Love gives us meaning. When we are loved, it feels right, and we feel right, and we feel whole. And when we love somebody else, it clicks and it makes sense, and we stand a little taller as a consequence. And there's a reason that love feels right. Why the sentiment that all we need is love resonates so deeply with us. And it has to do with the source of love. Everything that exists was made by the power of love. Love sits behind all of the reality that we call life. We were created to live lives of love. And the source of all that is God, because God is love. And when we love, we are in harmony with God. Our lives are aligned with the purpose of the universe because God is love. And that statement, God is love, actually sits at the end of a paragraph written by one of Jesus' closest friends, a guy called John. And this is the paragraph. Dear friends, let us love one another, for love comes from God. Everyone who loves has been born of God and knows God. Whoever does not love does not know God, because God is love. And love came down at Christmas. And Christmas reveals the true nature of love. God is love, and he does something about it. For unto us a child is born. Unto us a son is given. God's love leads to action. God's love causes him to make a choice and to do things that affect real-time events. There is a baby, and events have consequences. You know, I'm haunted by that question the choir's carol poses. Mary, did you know? You know, I'm guessing she had no idea at all. In this lovely, sentimental, sugar-coated Christmas story that we tell, actually we quickly pass over the darker stuff in the narrative. But then it's always been rather tempting and comforting to think that love is easy and straightforward, when it never has been. The Christmas story raises so many questions for me. Now, clearly, it's a different time and place. But Mary is a teenager, probably closer to 13 than 18. And what's love got to do with it? Well, Mary's love for God meant that she made a choice and then kept making choices to walk the path of love. She responds positively and chooses to accept God's invitation through the angel to be involved in something so world-changing that we're still celebrating it every year. But there are real implications for Mary. Being pregnant has physical consequences that are hard to avoid. And she wasn't just pregnant during December. She was pregnant for a full 9 months. I wonder how the conversation with her family went. When did she break the news? Well, there was this angel. Mary, did you know? We get no mention of her parents, but they must be behind the fact that she was then spirited off to go and live with her cousin for 3 months in the Judean hill country, 90 miles away. I guess because living in a small village like Nazareth, where everybody knew everyone, life for this unmarried teenage mum was getting very difficult. Mary, did you know? And then there's the man that she's going to marry. You know, Joseph comes over as a decent sort of fella who wanted to do the honorable thing. But however difficult the conversation was with her parents, Joseph knew that he wasn't the father. And for him, even the least worst explanation he could think of didn't bear thinking about. Mary, did you know? And then there's the Roman census that means another 90-mile journey, this time to Bethlehem, Joseph's hometown, and the only space for them is with the animals. And this teenager is away from home, away from her mum, giving birth, surrounded by animals, with all that entails. Now, I'm thinking hygiene, I'm thinking dirt, I'm thinking smells, I'm thinking on all the commotion of a birth. How does that disturb the animals, and how do they then react to that? Friends, this is no Disney film with friendly talking animals. And all this among people who she didn't know, who were strangers to her. Mary, did you know? And then perhaps the darkest side of the story, when the wise men alert Herod the Great to the fact that a new baby king had been born. This was not a good move. And as a consequence, all the baby boys in Bethlehem under 2 are slaughtered by the tyrant. Joseph is warned in a dream that Herod was coming after them, and so there was no alternative for this young family than to become refugees and head off to Egypt. Mary, did you know? And we've only covered the very beginning of the story. Ultimately, Mary would stand with others watching her son crucified by the imperial authorities. But she was still walking the same path that she began when love came down at Christmas. God's love caused him to do something. Mary's love for God meant that she made a choice and kept making choices to walk that path of love, even when it was hard and painful and heartbreaking. In fact, Mary was to go on to learn that love was the very heart of what her son would go to stand for, what he would teach, what he would embody. And we're back to where we were before. Her son taught, "A new command I give you. Love one another. As I have loved you, so you must love one another. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples if you love one another." Love one another. This is it. This is what it's all about. God is love. His love for us led his love coming down at Christmas in the physical form of the baby Jesus. And then Jesus tells us that love is at the center of everything. It is the heart of the universe. And when asked to sum up his Jewish faith, Jesus said, "Love God and love your neighbor as yourself." And you'll find this recurring in his message that he repeats again and again and again. "This is a new command I'm giving to you," he says. "A new rule of life. This is what must define you. This is to be the hallmark of your lives. And people will know that you've been with me, that you follow me, that you're my disciples, because you live this lifestyle, this way of life that embodies love, that expresses love, that exemplifies love." Now, though Jesus spoke 4 different languages, he didn't speak English. We do know that he spoke Greek. And our English New Testament is a translation of the Greek original. The advantage of Greek is that it has a whole bunch of different words for different types of love, where we only have love. So, romantic love is eros, like the statue in Piccadilly Circus in London. Friendship-type love is phileo. But the kind of love that Jesus is talking about here is agape love, unconditional love, the kind of love that wants the best for other people, a love that respects other people and values other people and treats other people with dignity, a selfless love, a sacrificial love. And we could sum up everything Jesus did and taught as seeking to unpack what this meant. So it's unconditional love. It's unqualified love. It's love that has no limits. It doesn't depend on our feelings. It's not shaped by our inclinations. It is not determined by our preferences. It is unconditional. And just in case that's not clear enough, how far should our love reach? Well, says Jesus, you've heard it was said, love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I tell you, love your enemies. And what does this love look like? Just think of the kind of things that Jesus said. It goes the extra mile. It turns the other cheek. It forgives and forgives and forgives. How many times? 70 times 7, says Jesus. But if you've counted up to 490, you've missed the point. It's concerned with those who are sick and hungry and thirsty and naked and in prison. It doesn't judge others. It helps those who've made bad choices. It supports those who are troubled souls. It's about peace, as Karen was telling us 2 weeks ago. Shalom, that sense of well-being. It's about patience and kindness and gentleness and goodness. And in one of the most eloquent explanations of the qualities this kind of agape love has, Paul, that leader and teacher of the Jesus movement in the early years after Jesus' death and resurrection, he wrote this: love is patient, he says. Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. It does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Wow. And to take it all the way, Jesus concludes, greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. Amazing stuff, love. A couple of weeks ago, I was reading a book, and I was taken with a line in it. The book was by Anne Kennedy. She's a pastor's wife, a mum of 6. And this is the line: love isn't a feeling, it's a choice. And that's it. That really is it. And that's why we get wrong our understanding of love so easily. You see, we live in a world where everyone is asking, how do you feel? What does it feel like? But the kind of love that Jesus is talking about is not hostage to our feelings. It's not controlled by our emotions, either their presence or their absence. Love is a choice. It's an act of will. Love is not merely an experience and an emotion. It is a lifestyle. It's the way we live. It's about how we choose to live. It's about what we choose to do. And sometimes we do that in spite of how we feel. We take a step back and think about our lives. Our lives are made up of big stuff and normal routine stuff. The big ticket items, they're the ones that we lay awake about at night, thinking about, turning over in our heads. How do I act? How do I respond? What do I do? And I'm forever grateful that at a particularly dark time in my life, a couple of friends took us out for a meal to a pub in Cornwall, just outside of Truro, up a hill with a river running in the valley. I can picture it now, even though it's years ago. I can't remember what we ate. I remember the event because it turned my life around. That act of love had been well thought out and was consciously intentional. But most of our lives aren't lived on those big moments. Most of our lives are lived in the grind of day-to-day life, where we instinctively and intuitively make a gazillion micro decisions every day. From how we drive the car, especially if we've been cut up or somebody's pushed in, to the people who cross our paths every day. The challenging ones, like those who have bad manners, or those who have disagreeable opinions, or those who have annoyed us. In some sense, it's a bigger challenge to live the lifestyle of love with those micro decisions than it is with the big ones. Love isn't a feeling, it's a choice. When this kind of love is the way we live, it becomes transformative of our relationships, of our families, of our workplaces. In fact, it impacts every place we find ourselves. This week, next week, Christmas Day, next year. When we make the choice to live this way, we get it right about love. Love is a choice. And God is love. And he chose to act on that love. And we celebrate that with the coming of the baby Jesus. Mary loved God, and she chose to trust and walk the path of love with her son. And sharing the very heart of everything he taught and stood for, Jesus speaks into our lives this morning, today, a new command I give you. Agape one another. Unconditionally love one another. My friends, we have to choose the path of love. Day by day, hour by hour, minute by minute. It is an act of will to live the love lifestyle in the particular circumstances of our own lives. It is our choice. Dr. Martin Luther King is a particular hero of mine. In 1957, he preached a sermon on loving your enemies. And he said this: we must discover the power of love, the redemptive power of love. And when we do that, we will make of this old world a new world. Love is the only way. The man was right. It's our choice. It's my choice. It's your choice. Love is the only way. Choose the way of love. Now, during this series, we've been coming up with some questions at the end of each talk for you to think about. And we have 3 for you to think about coming out of what does real love look like. And the first one here, quoting Jesus, "As I have loved you, so you must love one another." What does this agape kind of love look like in my life? How does it earth into the practical circumstances that we find ourselves in? Second is the quote from Anne Kennedy: "Love isn't a feeling, it's a choice." How do I make better choices to live the way of love? And then, finally, from that carol of Christina Rossetti, "Love Came Down at Christmas." Here's a challenge. What act of agape love can we do on Christmas Day this year to make a difference?